in a fall thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
Ooh, you're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Start the new year right with Norwalk Furniture on sale now at Ken Michaels Furniture. Save 35% on showroom pieces that are ready for immediate delivery, or in just 35 days, you can create a look that reflects your unique style with over 850 fabric and leather options and comfort levels, from cuddling to extra firm support. Norwalk Furniture's American roots go back over 102 years. For better quality American-made upholstery, shop the Norwalk Upholstery Sale at any Ken Michaels Furniture locations in Greenfield, Brookfield, or downtown. Better days start with a better night's sleep on a mattress from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in Milwaukee, our mattresses are custom built to your needs. We have all the comfort and firmness options to give you your best night's rest. Buying direct from our factory showrooms will save you up to 50% compared to national brands. Shop today during our New Year's sale at Ken Michaels Furniture for over 75 years of uncompromising quality, local factory direct saving, and your best night's sleep.
Now that the game is done, it's our time to check in.
Giannis playing the facilitator. He's going to put up his third three-point try, and he hits it for a second time tonight. How about the Bucks on an 8-0 run out of the gates here?
Bucks Talk starts now.
Takes it into the front court, and that will be that. The Warriors will hand the Bucks a 120-113 loss.
Live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios, here's Justin Garcia.
Well, a tough one tonight, and another one of those to add to the list of a very winnable game. And I don't know if this one more so than the others you would point to and say, man, you really should have won this, but it was there for the taking. The two teams in the final 90 seconds scored 4 points total. And the Warriors had a stretch of 3+ minutes late in the fourth quarter without a field goal. They kept the door wide open for you. But a couple of empty possessions in the final 2 minutes of the game when you really needed it and had no margin for error. And again, another one of these games where you just lose on the margins. And what we had seen, albeit against teams with a bad record, is the Bucks were starting to improve there. And as much as we want to push back and say, well, I'll believe it when they do it against a good team, that's fair. But in terms of record, the Bucks are also not a good team. And we're doing this against teams that were similar to them. So it did feel like a step in the right direction. It's not to say that one loss ends all of that and you go tumbling back down the hill. But you now need to split these two games in Los Angeles and in Denver. At worst, split them. Because a 1-3 road trip, when you get your guys back, even though it's on the West Coast and we've talked about the Bucks struggling to win on the road, all of those excuses, it's too late in the season for that. And it is now or never. So a 1-3 road trip here, if you drop 3 straight to close things out here, that would be, if not outright, that would be flirting with disaster for this group and would drop you to 16-23 on the season. And all the work you did to start to climb up the hill and say, okay, we're within a couple of games of just getting back to 500. Right back down to 7 games and right back in there with that mix of, well, you're not that far ahead of teams like the Hornets and the Brooklyn Nets. And at that point, you know, it's basically going to be mid-January when you wrap up the game against the Nuggets. Your next scheduled game is January 13th. At that point, let's call it mid-January. It's essentially been 3 full months of the season. And if you're a 7 games below 500 team, I understand Giannis has missed a lot of time. And there's some very, very jarring numbers in a good way that are out there with just how good this team has been with Giannis by and large. But at that point, you know, it's not early anymore. And I feel like we've had the same conversation several times on this show already this season. So that was the discouraging thing about this loss tonight. And now we'll see where they go from here. Friday night in Los Angeles against the Lakers team that Similar to what we said coming into this game against the Golden State Warriors, the Warriors are just okay. They were able to be gotten. It's not the Golden State Warriors of, the mid-2010s and even the resurgent Warriors in 2022 and shortly thereafter. It is clearly a much different version of the Warriors, who still have the star names in Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, and the recognizable names, I should say. But all of those guys, including Steph, they're not the same guy that they were. So this one was tough in knowing you got an opportunity here, and you just did not seize advantage of it. And it was all the margins, but it was really the final 3 minutes of the first half where you were playing through all of it, matching shot for shot with the Warriors, doing a pretty good job in all of those margins. And then Giannis picks up his third foul, checks out, and the Warriors immediately go on an 11-0 run to make what was a single possession game a 14-point lead before the Bucks would answer with a late A.J. Green 3 to make this 11 at the half. But that's where the unraveling really started, and the Bucks just once again dug far too deep of a hole. 855-616-1620 is the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us here on Bucks Talk, as you now are facing another one of the many times we've said this of gut check time of, okay, 2 games left on the road trip. Similar story, similar case can be made for the Lakers, but it's a Lakers team that still has prime Luka Doncic and has a better record than the Warriors, even if some of the metrics would suggest otherwise. And it's a Denver Nuggets team that I think we all got a little ahead of ourselves out in front of our skis and said, well, here's a major opportunity. You're going to avoid Nikola Jokic, not just in this game on Sunday. In the game these two teams play once again January 23rd in Milwaukee. Oh, by the way, the Denver Nuggets have now started to consistently win despite playing without Nikola Jokic. And look, you can certainly make a case. I don't think anybody would try to poke holes in it and shoot it down, that the Nuggets roster beyond Nikola Jokic, take him out of the mix, take Giannis out of the mix, and if you compare the two rosters, I think all of us would say, yeah, I'll give the edge to Denver there. But when you watch what Denver is doing now, and it's not just, well, you won your first game or you played tough in your first game without him, because oftentimes with a big injury, that first game is usually the one where you'll surprise people and you'll outkick your coverage and like, wow, they won that game. Because teams just either take you lightly, look past you, like, well, there's no Giannis or there's no Nikola Jokic. We don't need to bring everything out. We can go half speed and beat this team. You have those things. You have teams that, I guess we're going to have to play this way. I guess we're going to have to scheme against this. That first game is usually where you'll catch teams. Denver has now done this for 5 games, that they're consistently doing this. And that is one of the bigger differences, not just between the Bucks and the Nuggets, why the Bucks are in the spot they're in now versus some other teams, because everybody deals with injuries. Now, you can make a very, very strong case. Nobody's going to be dealing Denver right now, right? Those two teams, the Nuggets and the Bucks. No one's really going to deal with an injury of that magnitude, to be without your guy for an extended period of time when your guy is as good as Nikola Jokic and as Giannis. But Denver is staying afloat without Nikola Jokic. And a part of that stretch, too, it's only been, 5-6 games now? The first couple were no Nikola Jokic, no Aaron Gordon, no Christian Brown. And no Cam Johnson, too, who's also out in that mix. But Denver is treading water. And the Bucks, they sunk to the bottom in those games without Giannis. And that's why you're in the spot you're in now, where we keep saying, man, can you piece together 3 straight wins and start to get close to 500 on the season? 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line. To join us tonight on Bucks Talk, we'll take a look ahead this morning on Bucks Talk. We'll take a look ahead to Friday night in Los Angeles against the Lakers. But also, we mentioned it on the network portion of the postgame, there was a trade tonight, and we continue to see and hear the Bucks maybe not necessarily linked to players, but kicking the tires on players, and this name was one that reportedly there was some linkage between the Bucks and this guy. So we'll dig into that Atlanta Hawks trade, what it means for the rest of the Eastern Conference after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
Artwork, especially original artwork, can be pricey. But when you take it in on consignment from nice people like you who are just ready to change the look of their home, you can price it right. And you'll find a lot of it at Design Exchange. Beautiful frame pieces by a number of notable artists. And new ones pop in all the time. This is Katie with Design Exchange, where discerning buyers with discriminating tastes come to find premium home decor at a value. In Heartland and Pewaukee.
Design Exchange.
Now these tend to fly off the shelves. But don't worry, because our connection supplies us with a lot of them. Vintage ceiling tiles from once great old buildings in New York City that make for ultra-unique artwork. These items are definitely hard to find from anywhere else around here. So come take a look, and you'll probably find a treasure. This is Katie with Design Exchange, where discerning buyers with discriminating tastes come to find premium home decor at a value. In Heartland and Pewaukee.
Design Exchange.
Recently, a seller that unfortunately ended up choosing another agent called me. She said she made a mistake, and what she was expressing to me sounded like she kind of was bullied into signing with him. Is it typical? Not always, but it will never happen when you hire a Century 21 Benefit Realty agent. I want our agents to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'd want to work with me. Not because they're good at saying what you want to hear or offer the lowest commission, but because of trust. Because if you're not feeling that from your agent, that's a problem, and I don't want that. At 1.9% on the listing side of your sale with our commission capped at $19,000, Century 21 Benefit Realty leads with a very fair and transparent commission structure with maximum marketing that can get your home sold fast and for the best price. And saving money matters, but working with someone who will tell you exactly what you need to know up front, that creates trust. And that matters too. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
I'm Dr. Jasmine Zapata, Chief Medical Officer for Community Health at the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. Every year in the U.S., about 21,000 lung cancer deaths are caused by radon, an odorless, tasteless, and colorless gas. 1 in 10 Wisconsin homes has high levels of radon. Does yours? Call 1-888-LOW-RADON or visit lowradon.org to learn more. Test, fix, save a life.
Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
$120 to 113, the final tonight in San Francisco. The Warriors take down the Bucks again. 5 seasons that this streak has gone now, but we're approaching 6 calendar years since the Bucks have last won in Chase Center. It's not quite Utah levels or Phoenix from the 80s through the mid 2000s. But this is slowly becoming another one. This in Memphis, right? Where whenever you see those 2 games on the calendar, like, well, this is probably a loss in Memphis. This is probably a loss in San Francisco. Those are becoming this era's version of the Suns and Jazz road games for the Bucks. I mentioned there was a trade that took place earlier today, and this one kind of came together quickly. So we saw the reporting yesterday from Shams Charania that Trae Young and his agency was in communication with the Atlanta Hawks, basically saying, look, we think it would be best for us to be traded. We think you probably feel the same way too. And you started to hear a couple of teams that were tied to Trae Young potentially. You also started to hear the agents are asking for permission to contact other teams, which can be a tricky thing, too. And I know Bobby Marks, who obviously has experience in the front office, notably with the Brooklyn Nets, I believe he's talked about this before, too. But any of the former GMs and team presidents that you now see on TV and talking head roles will mention this part, too. Like, when you get that type of scenario, it's tough because your natural inclination is, okay, we would prefer to not pay Trae Young. He had a $49 million player option this summer. So he could decline it and just sign elsewhere. But the reality is Trae Young is not getting $49 million annually from any team, whatever deal he signs here. And you would assume he's going to sign an extension with the Washington Wizards at some point. But 40 plus $50 million, that's not going to be out there for Trae Young and for a number of players like Trae Young. 30% of the cap for a one-way player that, as good as he is, you will have a competent offense with Trae Young. That was never the issue with the Atlanta Hawks. It was always on the other end of the floor. Now, it is still perplexing to me with some of the personnel that Atlanta has and has had through the years. They have still struggled as much as they have defensively with Trae Young on the floor, even with 3 to 4 solid defenders around him. But it can be tricky because you may be inclined to say, okay, go ahead. Do the work for us. Sure, if you want to go find the trade and then we can communicate with that team and say, so what are you thinking? All right, go ahead and talk to other teams. But the tricky part is with a guy like Trae Young and with a lot of players, frankly, sometimes there are conversations that you maybe don't want to have or hear if you're the agent and the player. Like, hey, we have been given permission to leave Atlanta. We think we'd be a pretty good fit here in this city. Yeah, we're not interested. No, thanks. And then you just go on and on down the list. That's the tricky part for agents and teams of like, well, are you sure you're ready to hear some rejection from other teams? And we started to see some reporting, too, of preferred teams that Trae Young had, teams that he wanted his agent and wanted the permission to, like, hey, can we work something out here? The Minnesota Timberwolves were named. There was some various reporting done that the Bucks were interested. And what I took that as, because we've seen names like Trae Young, Michael Porter Jr., Anthony Davis. Earlier today, there was, hey, the Bucks are monitoring what's going on with Jalen Green, and they told the Phoenix Suns they'd be interested. What I view all of this as is, look, we just talked about the on-off difference for the Bucks, and that's been one of the bigger problems for them this season. The non-Giannis minutes have been a disaster for this group. So, like, we got to continue to add to this, and we got to find somebody that's going to help us out even more in those minutes. But also all of these names that were mentioned, every single one of these is a distressed asset. Like Anthony Davis is in his 30s now and has a history of injuries and not being able to stay healthy for extended periods of time. Like, nobody is disputing how much of a disruptor he is defensively. I do think we can oftentimes overrate his offense and really not have a firm understanding of who he is. Like, you just think of, Anthony Davis, a floor stretcher, and this guy that can knock down threes. He doesn't take a whole lot of threes, and he's not an efficient three-point shooter. But we've seen him take threes, and we know, he was a guy that was a guard and then had a growth spurt, so he has some ball skills, and we just think, floor stretcher. It's more of a defensive player and a rim runner that you're getting in Anthony Davis. Distressed asset, though. Trae Young, distressed asset. Jalen Green, I think you could even say at this point, distressed asset. All the hype that came with him, a very, very early draft pick from the Houston Rockets, and you could slowly see last year of just, we got this guy, and we're going through this person. We don't really trust Jalen Green offense down the stretch, and eventually he's moved for Kevin Durant. Michael Porter Jr., same story. Like, you're seeing a guy that can fill it up, and maybe it's empty calories play right now with the Brooklyn Nets with the, hey, somebody has to score. But Michael Porter Jr. has outplayed the guy that you traded him for in Cam Johnson so far this season. Staying healthy, but also the offensive efficiency that he's brought. And again, no one has ever questioned the offensive efficiency of Michael Porter Jr. What you question is the defensive ability and acumen and his ability to stay healthy. So yet another distressed asset. I would expect the Bucks to be linked to and continue to kick the tires on those types of players because, quite frankly, if you're going to make a move this season, as we just gave you the run-up of, we're going on 3 months of season now, and you're still fighting and struggling in that fight to get to 500. I don't know that any of us can look at any deal that's out there when you look at all of these names and say, well, this is a deal that you should give up your future assets for. And if you're not going to do that, well, what are you going to take on? Somebody that isn't going to cost you as much, or somebody where you can realistically say, now we're going to play hardball with you here. And that's what was funny to me about the links to the Bucks and the Hawks. And again, not all of this was totally sourced. Some of this was also like, well, let's just conjecture here and let's write up our stories of what teams would it make sense to trade for for Trae Young, and what would a trade look like. And, to see the ESPN story too of the Bucks, and they're going to give up the matching salary. I forget who it was. I think it was like Bobby Portis and Miles Turner and another piece to make it work, and the 2031 first-round pick. And well, that's where you lose me. And look at this deal today. There was no draft pick involved. It's Trae Young going to the Washington Wizards for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. And C.J. McCollum is an expiring contract. No draft capital. So look, I understand, the names in the cobbled together, let's put together a trade for the Bucks piece. We're not expiring deals, but still, you want to get off of this player more than we're desperate. So no, there is no 2031 first-round pick that we're including there. And I think that has to be the mindset you take with just about any deal if you're the Bucks. Like, look, I'll also say this. I think we've talked about this in previous shows. All these names that keep coming up in trade discussion, again, none of it is coming from the team. But I'm almost inclined to dismiss all of it. Like, we can cross Trae Young off the list. Because every single year, for the most part, when you look at some of the deals that the Bucks have made, they've been very quiet and stealth, and in some cases come out of nowhere. There's really one that didn't, and that was the one that happened at the deadline last year. Like, we started to hear more and more rumblings of Bucks really like Kyle Kuzma, and they're interested in Kyle Kuzma, and that ultimately came to fruition. But Dame, out of nowhere, right? Drew Holiday, out of nowhere. I wouldn't say Jay Crowder was out of nowhere, but getting that package together, which ultimately did not work out for you with the 5 second-round picks. P.J. Tucker, similar story, where everybody kind of looked at it like, yeah, P.J. Tucker would be a great fit for the Bucks, but I don't see, what scenario and what can the Bucks cobble together to make that deal. And they turned DJ Wilson, DJ Augustine, and some picks into P.J. Tucker. So it's oftentimes been under the radar, and if you hear a name come up a lot, I almost think you can just say, well, this isn't going to happen with the Bucks. But Trae Young moving on is interesting on a number of fronts and what it means for this Atlanta Hawks team. What are the ripple effects for the Bucks and the rest of the Eastern Conference? We'll dig into that conversation coming up after this.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
It's a robber, and if you ignore it, it will just keep taking and taking. I know how pain can consume you. It steals the fun out of life. It steals your energy. And it's just a dark cloud over a lot of people's lives, even on the sunniest of days. But your joint pain does not have to rob you of your life or your happiness. Because at Rejuvenex, we can alleviate your pain, and that can rejuvenate your life. In a world where big box healthcare has driven pain treatment costs through the roof and has made it look like joint replacements are your only option, Rejuvenex has kept pain treatment affordable for almost anyone. And for most with insurance, including Medicare and Medicaid, we've seen pain treatment paid for by insurance with zero out-of-pocket cost to our patients. This is Rejuvenex founder Richard Salinas. Don't let pain rob you. Take action today so we can help make your joint pain go away.
Rejuvenex. Alleviate your pain. Rejuvenate your life.
Call today, and there's a good chance we'll see you tomorrow.
It's time. It's time your ad dollar reached far more than you thought possible. And it's time your ad message made a dramatic impact on your bottom line. The results we brought our small business clients are significant, and there's no reason we can't bring you the same success. no matter what your ad budget is. So go to anderson-smith.com, hit the Contact Us button, email me, and I will call you in short order, because it is time. Anderson-smith.com. We help small business advertisers get better results. If you're buying and creating advertising for your small business, but you're not sure how to make it work, then I want you to know we can make radio or TV advertising work for you. Both are very powerful media, and both can be affordable. And we have a laundry list of notable long-term clients who will vouch for us. So if you have an interest in increasing the chances of your small business's advertising success, go to anderson-smith.com, hit the Contact Us button, send me a quick email, and I'll call you in short order. That's anderson-smith.com. We help small business advertisers get better results.
M.W. Marine.
The 6th annual Hales Corners Hometown Boat Show is on now at M.W. Marine. Check out the newest fishing boats from Lund, Vexus, and Ranger, all powered by Mercury Outboards. Grab a gorgeous 2026 model or save big on remaining 2025 Mercury-powered boats with substantial rebates. Demand is high, so get to M.W. Marine today. Free parking and free admission. Don't miss the Hometown Boat Show at M.W. Marine, MWMarine.com.
The Roundball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
120 to 113 final tonight in San Francisco. The Warriors knock off the Bucks. Once again, 5 straight home wins against the Bucks for the Warriors. And another winnable game for the Bucks, who had their opportunities in this one, but a couple of really tough stretches in the fourth quarter, your final couple of minutes of offense, and the final few minutes of the first half ultimately do the Bucks in here. That, and again, the true shot attempts, which we've mentioned quite a bit on this show. It is, to me, and I'm not alone here, but the best representation to see, okay, who's winning the possession battle. And the Warriors took 7 more true shot attempts than the Bucks in this game tonight. The Bucks, on average, are taking 4 fewer per game than their opponent. They are one of 7 teams that is taking at least 2 or more fewer than their opponent. And it's the 3rd worst mark in the league. Only the Mavericks and the Wizards are seeing a bigger difference. The Bucks minus, I think, 4.1. The Mavs, I believe, are minus 4.5, and the Wizards are minus 6. It's not company you want to be in if you're the Bucks. That number started to get better the past couple of games, but tonight minus 7. That's going to do it every single time. So Trae Young gets traded during the game to the Washington Wizards, and both the Wizards and the Hawks played tonight. And I said this kind of came together quickly because the Wizards were identified as a team by a number of people of, well, this is a deal that I suppose would make sense. Like, this is the type of thing you would roll the dice on if you're a team like the Wizards. The Wizards didn't give up much for him. They gave up expiring contracts. They gave up one big one in C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. And he's a player that I would assume you're going to re-sign if you're the Wizards, ideally not for that $49 million figure. But again, he's going to give you a credible offense. And you think about the 2-man game between Alex Sarr and Trae Young. And if you're the Wizards, you just need something right now. Like, we were there over 10 years ago when we thought that something was going to be Jabari Parker, but you just need something to come out of this era. And can we build around something? Can we have a player that reignites interest and jumpstarts something for us? And maybe that's Trae Young that does that brings Alex Sarr along, that brings the rest of the young guards along. And the Wizards still have a ton of cap space going into the offseason as well that, we don't see free agency in the league anymore, but you can use free agency in the sense of, hey, we'll trade for this contract because we got room to absorb it. For the Atlanta Hawks, it's interesting because, you bring on C.J. McCollum, who is going to be a one-and-done with this team. And Corey Kispert's going to help him out with shooting, too. But they're going to have to cut loose a player. It was a 2-for-1 deal, and they were already up at the roster limit. So, there's been a lot of chatter around it, and a lot of it is hope and projection. But I would look at the current roster of the Washington Wizards and say, if you got to create a roster spot, Do you create that right now with a buyout for one of the veterans that's on the team that you thought maybe we can get something? Like maybe this guy's going to restore some of his value and then we can trade him for some draft assets. And quite frankly, that just has not been the case this season. But that player is Chris Middleton, who if you would have looked at opening night, said, oh, absolutely. Like I would love to see Chris Middleton come back here and wrap up his career in a Bucks uniform. If you would have looked at the last time these two teams played, when the Wizards gave the Bucks that defeat on New Year's Eve, said, I don't know so much. I would assume Chris Middleton is going to get bought out. Now, would we all love to see Chris Middleton back here? Yes. Like the storybook ending to wrap up your career, to come back to Milwaukee and play alongside Giannis. And quite frankly, just give Giannis another face that he recognizes with, so much change. And we've talked about, it's like any of us when you think about your day-to-day jobs and one by one, the coworkers that you came up with and, I go to lunch with this group or we carpool, right? One by one, they've all moved on of like, this person went here and this person retired and this person went to this. That's the spot that Giannis is basically in now. It's like, oh, yeah, I got my brother and Bob. Like, I remember these guys, but yeah, my real close-knit group is gone now. So reintroduce one of those and bring back Chris Middleton. We'd all be in favor of that. Who would Chris Middleton take minutes from, right? Well, probably Gary Harris. I mean, at this point, if it is a buyout, Chris Middleton fits a big, big need and covers up part of a big hole for you. You're not asking him to be your starting small forward and take on some of those tough defensive assignments. In theory, you're asking him to lead your bench units and just be our organizer. Help out some of these other guys like a KPJ and Ryan Rollins and be that secondary guy that can create, facilitate, and hit shots, and also be a guy that we trust to run the offense when Giannis isn't on the floor. That would fill a massive need for this group right now. Defensively, there's still some questions and issues that are there, but in a reduced role, it's not as much of an issue. But for the Atlanta Hawks specifically, this makes it very interesting in what's going to happen with the rest of the Eastern Conference, because I think you would look at right now Atlanta and Orlando as the two teams in the East, and Cleveland, obviously, but those three teams you would look at and say, man, this is not where these teams were supposed to be. Cleveland, I don't know what is done. They're a second apron team. It makes it incredibly difficult to make any type of moves here during the season. It feels like we're headed towards a huge blow-up in the offseason if they fall short. Orlando is quickly going to be in that spot as well as, the under-the-radar thing in all of this and the move that they made in the offseason to bring in Desmond Bane, some of the contracts extensions that were handed out too is, oh, by the way, this team is knocking on the door of the second apron, and they haven't even won anything yet. So you have expedited your timeline there. They're probably going to be in the same place as Cleveland 2 years from now. Atlanta, though, feels like they're just getting into this part. And this trade helps them continue to move down that path. Is it a good thing for the Bucks? That depends on which side you're on in which path the Bucks should take. So we'll explain what we mean coming up after this.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
With an ever-changing inventory, you never know what great bargains you're going to be able to find at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores. It makes shopping fun because the best finds are the ones you had no idea you'd even come across. And when they're at thrift store prices, it feels good. And it feels even better to know you're helping us help others. Shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul. You're gonna love it, you're gonna love it all. When you shop at St. Vincent de Paul. Old things, new things here for you. We're always changing, we're always new. So many friendly people, smiles from wall to wall. You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
AccuNet Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 255368.
There are some things in this world that are both free and priceless at the same time, like your grandma's Christmas cookies or a spectacular sunset. When it comes to home buying, AccuNet's rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval is both free, even though it's more work on our part than a slapdash bank pre-approval. And when it comes to making sure your home buying journey doesn't include any chest-clutching surprises and avoidable mistakes, it's also priceless. Sellers and listing agents recognize AccuNet's rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval as the gold standard of our industry. Not just because of our $2,000 guarantee, but because they know we've done our homework and that you're the real deal, especially if you need a bridge loan to buy that next home. You'll also like that our closing costs are typically $1,000 to $3,000 lower than banks and the mortgage folks with the Rocket for exactly the same rate. Get started with your free, yet priceless, rock-solid, guaranteed pre-approval today by clicking on the blue button at accunet.com.
Why settle for just a job when you can have a career in the exciting automobile industry? The Auto Dealers Association of Mega Milwaukee new car dealer members have service technicians, sales, administrative, and management positions available now. The first word in career is car, and one of the best places to find a great career opportunity is at an Adam member new car dealer.
For current great paying job opportunities, visit adam.com/jobs. That's ADAMM.com/jobs.
This is Bucks Talk.
All right, so Trae Young traded to the Washington Wizards for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert, and the assumption is the Hawks are not done. What they are doing is saying, you know, the move we made in the offseason to bring in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's had a career season for us after a bit of a slow start. Now he's everything we envisioned him. But Wisconsin kid, Wausau kid, Jalen Johnson, that's our guy. He has far surpassed Trae Young. This is our star, and he is a superstar in the making. We're building around him. And we still have what could be the number one pick in the draft because of that pick swap between the Pelicans and the Bucks. We own the better half of it. The Bucks get the other one. Right now, the New Orleans Pelicans have the second worst record in the league. So if the season were to end today, the New Orleans Pelicans would be guaranteed no lower than the number 6 pick in the draft. So if you're Atlanta, you look at that and you say, this could be the number 1 pick. At worst, this is going to be a very, very high lottery pick. We like the group that we have with the rest of these guys. It was the elephant in the room that all the numbers torpedoed when Trae Young was back and when he was on the floor. That moment when he was injured, or those games when he was injured, is where the Hawks started to play much better. So we're going to build around Jalen Johnson and the rest of this group, and how we're going to do that is we're going to use what could be an excellent pick in a very, very loaded draft class this summer, and we have some additional money here by way of expiring contracts. One of those is Kristaps Porzingis, who, look, if the Boston Celtics, if Brad Stevens call you to work out a trade, it's probably time to hang up the phone. Because look at every move that has happened so far this offseason. And not just this year. Look at most of the moves the Celtics have done through the years, but especially under Brad Stevens. And they sold high on Kristaps Porzingis. And Kristaps Porzingis, who had that POTS disease syndrome that he was battling through the playoffs a season ago, they haven't said and specified that's what it is, but he's missed significant time with illness, and he just has not looked himself. That's a pretty sizable expiring contract that Atlanta can use. They still have some draft equity. If they really wanted to get nuts, then yeah, they could use that Pelicans pick. But by all accounts, that and Jalen Johnson are off the table. And there's one other name that Atlanta has been linked to. And I think everybody at one point said, well, is that a Giannis destination if the Bucks decide it's time to move on, or if Giannis asks for a trade? But if you're not going to trade Jalen Johnson or that Pelicans pick, you're not getting Giannis. You could potentially put together other things without that Pelicans pick, and certainly without Jalen Johnson, and get an Anthony Davis, who they have been kicking the tires on, apparently, And look, if you're Dallas, you get an expiring contract in Kristaps Porzingis. You would get some other asset as well. And that's important because you need to reset your timeline with Cooper Flagg. He's been great. He's arguably the rookie of the year. But it's a Mavs team that's half in, half out. And when you get those types of players, you either reset the clock altogether, or if you build around them and try to compete now, you do it the way the Spurs are doing, where it's you're added to a group of young players we already have that are a few years more advanced than you, that we feel like this group can be together for 4 or 5 years and compete. And we can make one other move. We'll bring in De'Aaron Fox, something like that, but not break the bank and bring in, a superstar level player. So that's the tricky spot the Mavs are in. That's why that deal makes a whole lot of sense for both teams. If they do that one by one, I mentioned on Locked On show, it's I want to be careful with how I phrase this, but I have talked with more people in the last week to 10 days or so around the team who have said, at one point I felt like it was inevitable that this team's going to look a whole lot different next year for the obvious reason that your superstar, I don't think he's going to be on this team next year. Most of that group that I had heard that from in the last 2 weeks have reversed course and said, I kind of feel like that's not going to happen. Because, number one, we haven't heard any request of a trade. And you can say, well, it's been half in, half out there, too, with some of the terminology and wording that we've heard. But there hasn't been any notion that I am asking for a trade here, but also look around. What's the market? And I think that's the tough thing to accept, too, because no one is denying the greatness of Giannis. But if, let's say, the Hawks go out and trade for Anthony Davis, cross that team off the list. Somehow it's not tampering, even though the Bucks were fined and lost a draft pick for saying they were going to extend their own player in Giannis. But James Dolan of the Knicks, owner of the Knicks, comes out and says, we're not interested in Giannis. Like, we know we need to win a championship now, but we're doing it with this group. And you have a number of teams that I think are just going to look at the Thunder, look at what the Spurs are doing now, potentially the Hawks, too, if they get a high-value pick here, and just say, this is the way, right? This is what we have to do. Young players that are on manageable contracts and are two-way players. That's how you win and compete in this league, and that's what the Bucks also need to start looking into doing and have started to slowly assemble some of those pieces. But I think that's the real challenge for this trade deadline in the offseason is, okay, how do we start to add more of those types of guys as soon as possible? Friday night, Los Angeles against the Lakers. We'll take a quick peek at that showdown and wrap things up after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Freighter.com to find out how.
Kick off the new year with a smarter home and bigger savings with Exterior Pros and Baths. New windows to lock in the warmth, durable roofing, eye-catching siding, or a stunning bath makeover. Start the year off right and get $3,000 off your project. That's right, $3,000 back in your pocket during our New Year savings event. Call 262-800-4274 or visit extpros.com today. This deal won't last all winter. Exterior Pros and Baths. New year, new home, done right.
Hi, this is Michelle Voskel, CPA and team member at the Neal Group. Happy New Year. Hopefully you enjoyed the holidays and spent time relaxing. Now it's tax time. I know, it's not the most wonderful time of the year, wondering if you are getting a refund or money to the IRS or to the state, waiting for all the forms to come and wondering what is deductible. Control the situation instead of letting it control you. Let us help you understand all the new tax laws, how they affect you, and how to take advantage of them. Last year, we helped Janet and Norm go from owing $43,000 to getting a $500 refund. We can help you too. The first meeting is free. Call now, 414-325-2040, or visit neilgroup.net. You earned it. We help you keep it. That's 414-325-2040 or nealgroup.net.
I'm Dr. Jasmine Zapata, Chief Medical Officer for Community Health at the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. Every year in the U.S., about 21,000 lung cancer deaths are caused by radon, an odorless, tasteless, and colorless gas. 1 in 10 Wisconsin homes has high levels of radon. Does yours? Call 1-888-LOW-RADON or visit lowradon.org to learn more. Test, fix, save a life.
Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
Our Friday nights, game number 3 of this West Coast road trip, the Bucks and the Lakers. An even later tip, 9:30 Friday nights, 9 o'clock pregame coverage begins, and an even later version of Bucks Talk that'll take us well into the 1 a.m. hour on Saturday. So really quick, what I wanted to wrap here with is there's one player that I think with a pretty sizable chunk of Bucks fans has kind of become the whipping boy, and the criticisms that I see for him just basically tell me you're not observing everything that's happening here. So if we look at on-off splits, I told you several times, I don't really love the plus-minus number, so this is not that. But if we look at the on-off splits, so how much better is your team with you on the floor than off the floor? In the last couple days here, Giannis has now moved past Nikola Jokic for the largest impact in your net rating difference on the floor versus off, and the most wins generated. That they're playing at a rate 44 wins better with Giannis on the floor than off. That is the most in the league. Nikola Jokic is plus 40. Jalen Suggs is plus 36. After that, you see a pretty steep drop-off. Giannis is number 1 in net rating difference. The Bucks, in the minutes where Giannis is on the floor, are 20 points per 100 possessions better than they are with him off the floor. The Nuggets and Nikola Jokic, it's plus 18.7. So he's finally moved past him. Plus 17.5 on the offensive end. That is also greater than Nikola Jokic. That is number 1 in the league. Number 15 in the league, and this is for players that have played at least 500 minutes. Number 15 in the league is what stands out. And look, there's a couple of names that I think people would raise an eyebrow at, but numbers 1, 2, and 3, Giannis, Jokic, and Jalen Suggs. Lauri Markkanen is number 4. Michael Porter Jr. is number 5. You got Donovan Mitchell in there. Denny Avdia and what he's done for the Blazers. Pascal Siakam, Victor Wembanyama, they're all in that group. Jimmy Butler is in there. But number 15 is A.J. Green. Bucks are plus 11.5 with A.J. Green on the floor versus off the floor. And those numbers have been basically just as good offensively as they have defensively. So all the chat, A.J. Green is, a traffic cone and he can't defend guys and he fouls. It's not accurate. The fouls are there, sure. They were much heavier earlier in the season when part of it was on A.J. not being in the right spot. Part of it is he didn't have a favorable whistle. But it's just not true to say that A.J. Green is a bad player on the defensive end, and it's certainly not true to say that offensively, because even on nights where, look, you'd love the volume to be higher for three-point attempts, it's the same conversation as we've had with Giannis. It's the gravity of what he creates that opens things up for Giannis and the rest of the offense. He is number 15 in the entire NBA in on-off efficiency. A.J. Green is. Now, conversely, you would look at it and you would say, well, the Bucks have 2 guys that are in the top 15. And I know Giannis has missed a whole lot of time, but they got two guys that have been that good, and they're 16 and 21 on the season. Well, conversely, they have two guys that are in the bottom 20 in the entire NBA. And this, I think for many of us, would definitely match the eye test here. Bobby Portis, the Bucks are minus 8.9. 8.9 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the floor than off the floor. And Gary Trent Jr. is minus 16.1. They are the only team that have two players that close to the top and two players, multiple players, that close to the bottom. And it just kind of shows you they're starting to play better, but, right, 2 out of 3, and you can't get to those 3 straight wins. It's things like that. But Giannis and A.J. Green are certainly not the problems here. Like, by the numbers, those have been two of the most impactful players in the league this season. Can they carry it over? And by carry it over, I mean, can they start a new streak here? Friday night against the Lakers, a team that, by the numbers, by the standings, is a good team at 4th in the Western Conference. But every other metric suggests this team is a mediocre team. They have a negative point differential on the season, despite being 10 games above 500 with the 4th best record in the Western Conference. Their losses have been by an average of more than 18 points per game. Tonight, they lost by 16 to the San Antonio Spurs. So what version of the Lakers are you going to get? You had a dominant version the first time these two teams met. Does that mean you're due for the other version? We'll find out Friday night, 9:30 tip-off from Los Angeles. 9 o'clock is when our pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We will talk with you then.
She's been putting off knee surgery for years, and she had a trip coming